need in Akron that I can't see.
I could have instantly.
Much greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could have.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Akron Live. So great to be with you in the new year. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. And before we lean into our guest that we're going to have this afternoon, I just want to kind of say this and make just a statement in regards to the ruling that came down in the case of Jacob Blake, the man who was shot 7 times in the back by a police officer. And I believe something came down to where there was no charges that were going to be found against that police officer. And so I know there's probably some people out there listening now, and I know there's some people probably out there, period, that says, man, I'm so fatigued or I'm so tired of talking about this stuff. And here's the thing, I am too. But that doesn't take away the fact that it's still happening. And the fact that it's still happening is letting us know that, hey, it may be a new year. However, we're still facing the same circumstances. So let's just be mindful. Let's be mindful for each and every one of us, as far as just humanity is concerned, that we hopefully, I saw this sign last week and I thought it made a lot of sense. It said, if you can be anything, it said, be kind. So I'm going to kind of take that with me for 2021. It says, if you can be anything, and we all have big, grandiose type of things that we want to be. But it said, if you can be anything, be kind. And let's just be kind to one another. I talked about this on Sunday at church. I had the opportunity to preach, and I think that a lot of times when we pray and we want God to shift and to change everything, all of the situations, all the circumstances that we face. And I believe God has the power and the authority to do that. However, I began to look at it differently because this is how it spoke to me. I think instead of God just coming in and wiping clean all this stuff, whether it's COVID, whether it's the racial tension that we're dealing with, whether it's, hey, we're still trying to determine and figure out who the president is or is going to be and how that's going to work. I really believe this is an opportunity in this year for us to change who we are in the situation or the circumstance. Let's not wait for the situation or the circumstance to change, but let's make sure that we're changing in the situation or circumstance. That's what I'm saying today is, hey, if you can be anything, be kind. Okay. So with that being said, I want to bring on a very special guest today that we're going to have some really meaningful discussion and conversation as it relates to people right now, as they go through COVID-19 and as well as other things. And we're going to be talking about financial literacy. And so I'm going to bring on my friend, my sister, Brandy's going to come on and be with us at this time. Brandy, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
So I'm going to start in with this because I want to lighten the mood as much as possible because I just led with something really heavy. Okay. But Brandon, I want to say I'm a little bit disappointed because I didn't receive any packages in the mail from you in regards of any gift that you were sending me for Christmas. So I don't know how to take that right now, but I know we're on good terms.
I'm sending all my love.
Well, I appreciate it. Did you guys have a great Christmas?
Yes, I did. I have a 15-month-old who's running around the house and bringing a lot of joy and a lot of laughter, and that's just something you can't buy. She's such a joy to my husband and I and our family, so it was interesting to say the least.
Man, that's awesome. So, Brandy, I just kind of introduced you as Sister Brandy, but if you could just, to our audience, could you just kind of say who you are, what you do, and a little bit of, we're going to get into why you're here with us today.
Sure. My name is Brandy Rahim. I live here locally in the Akron area, and I am in the financial services industry. I'm also a philanthropy chair with the Society for Financial Service Professionals. It's something that I volunteer and do in helping further educate myself as well as others so that we can help improve and just grow the financial well-being and financial literacy of consumers out there. So for my job every day, I help put compelling sales solutions and ideas together because everybody's needs are different, their challenges are different. So that's the kind of stuff that I create and put together every day.
Awesome, awesome. We appreciate that. And I want to kind of jump right in because we are in a pandemic that we've been in now for a little while. No, it doesn't look like there's going to be any end in sight. And so with this pandemic, there's been a fluctuation of people working, people not working, people being laid off. There were people who might have started in 2020 saying that, hey, I'm getting out of debt this year, or I'm paying certain things off, and they were living at a certain economic base. To then when COVID happened, it got disrupted a little bit. So could you kind of tell us what is the wealth gap and kind of how did we get here?
So the wealth gap, well, let me just start off by just defining what wealth is. Wealth is an abundance of valuable financial assets or maybe just physical possessions, which can be converted into a form that can be used in a transaction. So it can be your home, it can be real estate you own, it can be stocks and bonds, it can be what's in your checking or your savings, your wages, things of that nature. So that's kind of what makes up what your wealth is. If you were to write it all out on paper, all of the things that you own. There's been a gap that's actually been really continuing to grow for the last 30 years between the wealthy and maybe the not so wealthy. That again can really be felt and experienced, especially along racial lines. Minorities in particular have been experiencing it. There's a number of factors as to why we got here or how we got here. Obviously, slavery and segregation and just a lot of the discrimination that is experienced by minorities as a whole is a big contributor. Income inequality is probably the largest culprit. There was a study recently done by the Cleveland Federal Reserve. I believe their study was done around 2016 or 2017, where they did a study and they looked at if white and black families were paid the same amount of money from 1962 onward, the wealth gap would be about 0.9 by 2007, which means today there wouldn't even be a wealth gap. It's a very significantly large gap where if you are a Caucasian and you don't even have a college degree, your income could be equal to that of somebody who's black and has a college degree. It's huge. So the income gap, or I should say the income inequality is probably the largest culprit. Decreases in wages for workers is another contributor. Tax cuts disproportionately. The minimum wage has not kept pace with inflation. So that continues to be a challenge. The increase in low-paying service sector is another one. Everybody is, like I said before, is already familiar with segregation and Jim Crow and redlining. And all of these things, again, have contributed to the limited access that minorities, particularly blacks, the limited access that they've had to resources that could otherwise build wealth. So it's a number of things. It's not just one.
Yeah, it's not just one thing. And this is so interesting because when I started our program today, I wanted to mention the Jacob Blake kind of case and what happened there. And now that we're talking about wealth, it's not just, when you look at minorities, it's not just, I would say, us being disproportionately marginalized just from a standpoint of shootings and unjust shootings, but also from a standpoint of the opportunities that we have to gain and acquire wealth. It's a disproportionate thing. And so how do we, and Brandy, I'm looking for you to do this in this 30 minutes that we're going to have together today to tell us, how do we begin to close the gap? And you got to come up with this problem and solve right now, right? No, you don't. But how do we begin to close this gap?
It really starts with financial literacy. And, gaining financial wealth is not something that you read one book or one article and you've got it and you're good and that's it. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of studying that you may not necessarily have time for. And so working with financial professionals is probably your best bet. I would say that that's probably where you want to start, is working with somebody who has experience in this. Building a family savings is a challenge in this country, has been for quite some time. I'm sure you've probably heard or read the statistics that most households might have maybe 2 months worth of bills sitting in their savings account. They might, have a couple $1,000s laying around in a savings account if an emergency were to come about. So working on strategies to save is huge. And again, working with a financial professional might help you get some good habits in place so that you can have a liquid savings. Gosh, I remember when I graduated from college and of course there's the rush to get the job and get my own place, and I'm an adult now, but oh my God, was that a humbling experience. I remember when I first started saving, it must have been, I don't know, $20, $30 every check. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save. And it wasn't very much, but you got to start somewhere, even if it's just $20. And obviously that increased over time, and I had better job opportunities that came along. But my gosh, when you first get out of college and all you're trying to do is pay your rent and put gas in your car, and because you're grown, right? You can do it. My dad always told me that you weren't grown until you buy your own toilet paper, and I was like, I'm buying my toilet paper.
Oh, no.
But yes, it started just something very small and simple, just like that. Even in God's word, it talks about saving and building a savings and building wealth a little by little, and not necessarily, trying to score big, on the first try. So it's a steady effort that you make. Protecting your income, I think, is a huge one. I think it's often overlooked, especially in members of the minority communities. Protecting your income is huge. A lot of us think that our largest asset may be our house or maybe the business that we own, but it's your earning capacity. If you don't have an income protection plan in place, like a life insurance policy or a personally owned disability policy, that can be detrimental to you and or your family members. During your working years, yeah, you probably do have a smaller chance of actually dying, but illness or injury, there's always a big chance that something like that could happen in just a couple of months, or even a year off of work can be really detrimental to your household. And if you go back to what I just said a few minutes ago, most households don't have sufficient cash to last you 6 months or a year or even 24 months to recover, because it's not just your household bills that you then have to manage, it's also the medical bills. So what's your plan if you become too sick or injured to work for a time period, or God forbid you pass away? What's the plan for those in your household to avoid poverty? So things of that nature can help you to build your wealth. Continuing to save for retirement. I was doing some reading and studying, and the average 401k balance, just the average, in 2019 was 90,000, just 90,000, and that's just the average. That's not even the median. The median is actually around 22,000, which is a better indicator. What's frightening about that is retirement is about 25, maybe 30 years. So if you try to stretch that out, that would kind of be a problem. And that's why the average American is so reliant on Social Security. And we already know that Social Security may be a challenge in the future.
Absolutely.
So finding other ways to save your money and other assets, your 401k and IRA, bonds, even your investing. Minorities, particularly Black folks, are more likely to invest in very conservative assets like real estate or a life insurance policy And we as a community need to kind of take on a little more risk, a little more return. If your portfolio is diverse, then it can help kind of buffer some of the volatility in the market, so you don't feel it as much, you don't lose as much. So just diversifying your portfolio, and again, working with a financial professional can help you make some educated decisions as to what investments you may want to get involved in, depending on what your risk tolerance is. So you don't
Absolutely.
need to be an expert in those.
Yeah. So I want to go back because, and I love this, just the plainness of you talking, saying, hey, us as black folks, right?
Yeah.
So us as black folks, we have a challenge with going to the doctor and talking about our money.
Yes.
I don't know if I trust the doctor. I don't know if I want to go to the doctor. And I don't know if I necessarily want to talk about my money, because it's going to lead to some maybe embarrassment of, man, when I was 15, I thought I was going to be at this place when I turned 33, and I'm not there. And there's a little bit of embarrassment of me really being able to lean in to have that conversation. But I love what you talked about, is saying just taking some small steps. Yeah, I know to take the small step to say, but how do I go in? How do our listeners, and especially those that are in the black community, how do they go in to say, okay, I just need to talk openly about where my finances are, what my fears are? Because I believe, Brandy, a lot of this is more fear-based than anything else, because I don't think that I can, because I've been living this way for so long, and you're telling me that I need to shift and to adjust. So outside of just starting with saving, how do I even approach a conversation with somebody like you to really talk about my finances? What does that look like for me in that first approach of discussion or conversation?
Sure. I actually had a friend of mine refer somebody to me. I don't actually client facing appointments anymore. I have a different role, but I do know of a multitude of financial professionals in the Akron area and the Cleveland area, especially because I'm a part of the Society for Financial Service Professionals. But she had a friend, a young lady who is in her late 30s, almost 40ish, that was looking to work with a financial professional, and she asked the same question. And so I asked her, about what some of her goals were. I asked her what her preference was. Do you want to work with a male, or do you want to work with a female? Does race matter? Things of that nature. And then I gave her some things to think about. Are you trying to build wealth? Are you trying to protect things? Have you asked yourself what you want to do? And maybe just jotting those things down. What's keeping you up at night? What are some goals that you have? And just kind of maybe even just jotting that down on paper, just to kind of get some of your thoughts together. And then I gave her the phone number of some financial professionals that she could call. I did suggest to her that, when you're building wealth, it's really exciting, right? When you're building wealth, you're looking at your savings and you're looking at investments and bonds and so on and so forth. And those are all really great. And it's a really, really important thing to do. But there's a protection part of building wealth. You want to protect what you're building. So accumulate, you want to protect what you're accumulating. And then the third part, or the third leg of that stool, is how are you going to distribute or receive that wealth, or pass it on to your beneficiaries, or whoever it is that you want to inherit it. So all of that kind of goes together. So when you're choosing a financial professional, at least in my personal opinion, that's somebody that I would want to work with. Financial professionals kind of do various different things. You have an investment advisor, and you have a CPA maybe that you work with, or you have a certified financial planner, or you have an attorney, or so on and so forth. And I think what's really most important is there a comprehensive plan that they're helping you to work towards? And that may take those financial professionals talking to each other with you, so that the right knows what the left is doing. Even your property and casualty professional that you're working with, do you guys talk? Is there conversation? Because that, if you don't, that's where gaps happen, and things slip through the cracks. You want your plan to be as whole and comprehensive as possible. You don't want to wait until, again, a life event like a death or a disability, or even your retirement happens, and you're not prepared because something slipped through the cracks. So that's how I would encourage folks to approach it is comprehensively talking, obviously doing your interviewing, if you will, and kind of screening who you want to work with. Do you like their personality and their philosophy and their approach? But then once you have that, getting those folks together on the phone or in person or whatever it is, because once they work together, I mean, it's magic. It's magic, and it's only for your good.
Man, I can tell you get excited about this because you're just smiling. I don't get excited about talking about money unless somebody's giving it to me, but you're like excited by helping everybody plan. But that's a blessing, because I think a lot of times for me, Brandy, growing up and when I was just getting out of college like yourself, I'm like, well, I believe that I had to make a certain amount of money in order to be able to think that way, right? And, I'm going to go here because you opened up this door. But I think a lot of times we'll pray, just like I talked about earlier, and we'll say, okay, God, I need more money. And he can do that. But what he wants us to do is, no, how can you be faithful with what you have? It's about us being faithful over a little, right? And he'll make us ruler over much. So it's really, like you said, it's this step-by-step process of what can I do with the little that I have, even if it's $2, $3, $5, or $20. But man, let's start somewhere. I just love that approach that you're giving. So I got another question.
Sure.
You talk to our audience about the value of minority business owners. What's the value that they have there, the minority business owner?
Oh, wow. They are such a huge, they're such tremendous value to this country and even just to our local communities. So let me first define what a minority business owner is. So if you own at least 51% of a business, and you are Black or Asian or Native American or Hispanic, you're one of those ethnicities, and you own at least 51% of a business, you're considered a minority business owner, right?
Okay.
And minority business owners as a whole in this country contribute, they own about 20% of the businesses. So it's a huge contribution, not only to the local communities, but also to the country as a whole. When you own a small business, you're bringing money into the community. You're creating wealth for your family. It's another wealth generator, if you will. Your local community benefits from it because you're creating jobs. You're hiring people in to work for you. So you're creating jobs. Small businesses tend to do business with other businesses. There's some cross-pollination there, if you will. And because businesses bring in money, and there's taxes being paid by the business and the employees and so on and so forth, all that pours into the community, which then points to good school systems, athletic programs, community wellness centers, things of that nature. All of that stuff works together. So having small businesses is vital, and they are the bloodline of this country. I mean, it's what 80-90% of what contributes to this country. So you've got your big chain companies and businesses out there, but it's really the small mom and pop shops that really keep the doors of this country open and successful. So we need them.
Yeah. Tell me, what are some of the challenges they're facing right now, and how are they looking to overcome some of those challenges?
So prior to COVID, some of the challenges, I'd probably say the biggest one was the lack of working capital. When you get ready to start a business, you have a certain amount that you may use to start it. Maybe you're running it out of your home, maybe out of your basement. Maybe you rent a space, and you buy up whatever technology or tools or resources you need to kind of kick off your business and get it going, and that's your capital. But when you grow and the demand increases, you're having success, that's where it becomes a challenge. You need more working capital to be able to get a bigger working space. Maybe you want to hire more employees. Maybe you need to upgrade the technology that you're using to service your clients, things of that nature. It becomes a challenge. How am I going to pay for all of this so that I can expand and keep my doors open? And we already talked about how savings can be a challenge. So the natural thought process would be, oh, well, I'll just go get a business loan. Well, you have to have some really good books for your business to show a bank to say, hey, I have some pretty good collateral here, and I really need this business loan. But if your books aren't strong, it can lead to some declines. Minorities in particular are in a lot of the service and hospitality industries, like owning restaurants or bakeries or things of that nature. And they don't necessarily, those types of businesses in those industries don't necessarily have a ton of collateral. So it's harder for them. Minority business owners also start out with a smaller amount of capital than, say, maybe their white counterparts. So those are some of the challenges. Other challenges may be business networks. Networking is huge. I don't care what kind of business you're in. If you don't have enough of the right type of people to talk to, your business, the doors are just going to close. So having enough of those types of business networks is going to be huge. Getting your name out there, creating your personal celebrity in your local community. If you don't have it naturally built into your family or your friends, it's going to be very costly. I'd say probably the third thing that they struggle with is the logistics of running a business. A lot of business owners are they're visionaries. They have a dream, they have a vision, and they want to get from A to Z, but all the little steps and things in between, they may not be the best at. Maybe keeping the books, maybe it's the marketing, maybe it's the customer service stuff until you've ramped up enough sales and profits that you can pay somebody to do that for you. That can be a challenge for a lot of new entrepreneurs. So again, working with a financial professional can help you overcome some of that stuff. A lot of financial professionals work with other business owners, and so they could be a center of influence to connect you with more folks that could help your business grow. Yeah. Financial professionals could also help you find alternative solutions or options for capturing more working capital that you and I may not necessarily know off the top of our heads, because it's just not the thing we do every day.
Awesome. Yeah. And you made something come to my mind, and I don't think we talk about it enough, and we associate this only, I think, with mental health. But I think there's also a stigma associated with a minority business owner that's not with their white counterpart, right? It's the stigma of, well, maybe they're a little bit lazy, they don't open on time, it's not clean. Like, how do you kind of overcome, because that may not even be you, right? But that may have been just, whether it's the stigma or the stereotype, I think maybe sometimes it comes with some Black-owned businesses. Would you say that's true or false? Or because that's kind of what I see for myself.
Yeah, there is that stereotype or that reputation, unfortunately, that especially minorities and Blacks in particular, we have that reputation. And again, that is just something I think that you overcome in time. As you establish your local celebrity, again, with your customers, with your client base, I think over time that can improve. And that's just something that, I think all business owners probably have to work at. I don't know that there's a one solution that, fixes it for everybody. It's part of that whole customer trust that, every business owner has to build with their customer base. Oh, are you on mute?
I might be. Can you hear me now? Tell me, Brandy, why are you so passionate about this? Especially as you talk about the minority businesses within the Black community or even the minority communities. Why are you personally so passionate about it?
I'm passionate about it because I guess at the core of everything, I want people to be well. I want them to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually well. And not that money fixes everything, but when you feel confident, emotionally confident, mentally confident, financially confident, you do more. You're able to do more. You're able to help younger generations. You're able to, I just think you're able to do a whole lot more. You're happier. You have more joy. You have more hope. And I think that's probably at the core of it. There was a scripture that I read probably a couple of years ago in the book of James, where it says, I believe in the first chapter, it talks about that the only religion that God really cares about is taking care of orphans and widows. Now, obviously, widows and orphans are treated a little differently today than they were in biblical times. But what that spoke to me is really taking care of those that are maybe less fortunate and uplifting those individuals, teaching them good habits or better habits so that they can improve their life experiences, their lifestyle. And so I believe that by educating more folks about financial literacy and how to make better educated decisions, I think that helps not only families, but communities as a whole and just our nation as a whole.
Yeah, man, I love that. And that's James 1:27, by the way,
Yeah.
by helping the widow. So, but yeah, because that's a scripture that sticks with me as well. And that's a part of some of our initiatives that we're doing. We have a mental health and wellness initiative. And I love what you said, because a lot of time wellness is wholeness from a spiritual perspective, a mental perspective, an emotional perspective, and a financial perspective, right? Like, man, if I feel good about what's happening financially, man, I'm not going to be as anxious about some things that are happening and going on in my life, right? I'm going to have a little bit more peace and a little bit more patience. Not saying that my money answers all things, but man, money helps, right? And I think it talks about that biblically as well. And so, Brandon, let me ask you, are you a movie watcher? Do you have a favorite movie that you like?
Yes, I love anything with action, and I love drama, and I do love science fiction. I think my husband scored big because I'm the kind of wife that will never ask him to watch a chick flick. So he's pretty lucky with that. But yes, anything with action, suspense, dramas. So.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna have to connect you to Stacy, because over the holidays she always wanted to watch, Hallmark Christmas movies. She don't want suspense. She don't want any of that stuff. And that's her. But we digress. But based on a love of a good movie, what are some suggestions that maybe our audience can learn from, just from a good movie?
There are some really great movies out there. If you want to learn more, again, about financial literacy, financial wellness, thank God Hollywood makes movies like this. The most recent one that my husband and I watched was The Banker. It was based on a true story about the real estate industry, about the banking industry, some of the challenges that especially minorities, Blacks in particular, were enduring before the Fair Housing Act came into place, which allows people that look like you and I to be able to buy homes without discrimination. So it was a really good movie. If you want to learn a little bit more about how the stock market and things work, Wolf on Wall Street was a really good one. So there's a number of really good movies that are out there. In a sense, we're all at home. You can Google them.
Absolutely. Well, what about any books? Because we do have book readers as well as audience. Any good books that somebody kind of take up and read to kind of learn a little bit more about financial literacy and capital and how I love what you said about protecting what you already have.
Yes. So when it comes to financial literacy, financial well-being, and things of that nature, I always love, and this is just me personally, but I always love books that take what can be really complex topics and kind of make it into more bite-sized, chewable pieces. Nobody likes to feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to close a book after the first page because it's just too much. So there are a lot of children's books that even financial professionals themselves are using and reading today to help kind of break down some of these more complex planning solutions. And I would say Ty Allen Jackson is a more recent favorite of mine. He's a young Black author who began writing children's books when his son was about 7 years old. His son wanted to open up a lemonade stand, and he thought it'd be a great time to talk to his son about money and being an entrepreneur. But when he went to the bookstore at that time, there weren't any books for children, and especially children of color. And so he wrote a number of books, and he's had great success. He's a self-published author, and his books have awarded him the Martin Luther King Award, I believe, in his home of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I do know that his books were littered within the White House when Michelle and Barack Obama were in there. So he does a really, really good job of explaining some really great financial planning solutions and strategies through his books. So again, his name is Ty Allen Jackson. There's another author named Matt Garner. I believe his book is called The Four Bears of Finance. So he talks about the importance of the saving bear, the investing bear, the giving bear, just the various different places of how you want to, the different buckets, if you will, of where you want to place your money as you're earning income, just kind of get you in the habit of doing those things. I think even if you're not a reader, or even if you're not even into books, there's so many phone apps out there, especially for the younger generations, that, there's a lot of folks that have engineered games so that you're playing a game, but you're also learning some of the basics of finance. I'm not a gamer myself, but I know that there are a ton of them out there. So that's also an option too.
Man, Brandy, thank you so much. I mean, we've been kind of working at this for a little while. Our audience don't necessarily know that. And we're looking to do some things here within the next 2 to 3 months to really bring a little bit more of financial literacy to our area, especially within some of these communities that are underserved in that way. And so please be on the lookout for that. This is not going to be the last time that you hear or see Brandy, but I also want to just give our audience, and I don't see anything as of yet, but if our audience has any questions for Brandy, man, it's wide open for you to be able to ask her some questions you may have. I know I'm looking at some, and I saw Mama Joanne already say, "Hey, I'm so proud of you, baby. Thanks for being there, and love how you got it." And also, I want to give Joanne a shout out because Joanne connected us. A blessed sister of mine who has spoken into my life, and so thank you, Joanne. Good to see your words up there and your name up there, and so we're really appreciative of what you have put together between myself and Brandy. And Brandy, again, just thank you so much for taking the time out to help to educate us and to speak into us in this way, because this is something that we're going to continue to do from this platform. We want to offer really good content and understanding and education from the perspective of how do we help to grow? Because, man, we're talking about the disparities that's going on, whether it's from a place of housing, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's criminal justice, or even in this sense, whether it is financial in workplace. So we just thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for your time and for just bringing attention to this challenge. It's a new year, which means there's plenty of time and room to set some new habits. So I'm excited.
That's what it's about. Like we don't necessarily New Year's resolution, but it's just, man, more lifestyle shifts and changes. And so how can we use the beginning of the year to help to shift some of our lifestyle and changes? So Brandy, thank you so much. If anybody would like to even reach out and get a hold of you, could you tell people how they could do that?
Sure. You can reach me at my email, Brandy with a Y _J_Rahim at glic.com. I guess I could maybe throw that in the chat.
Awesome. We'll get that in. And again, if you didn't get it, we'll have it here at Love Akron, and you can reach out to us because we want to help to be a connector of people, places, and things. So again, Brandy, thank you so much for taking out the time, and we'll be in touch soon because we have some things that we're working on together that we're going to be bringing into Akron. So we're really excited about it. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. And so, man, thank you all for being with us. This was just another great way to kick off the year, talking about our finances and just seeing what that looks like and how do we continue to grow in that so that we can really get to wellness, and wellness helps us to get to wholeness. And that's what we want this year. And remember, what we always said was, man, if you want to be anything, be kind this year. And so I want to thank my team out there. I want to thank Miss Lori Porter, who's always behind the scenes helping us. I thank Excellence for being in and what they're doing. They're a minority business. So, hey, let's support Excellence and what they're doing as well. And so, again, remember, we're going to be here. Next week, we have on our Love Akron Live, we have the AND campaign. Capital AND campaign. We're going to have Danica Bishop and Christy Stacks that's going to be on talking about an upcoming event that they have coming on Martin Luther King Day on Monday, January 18th. So we're really excited. The reason why we do Love Akron Live, because we believe it's important for us to be able to listen. The more we listen, the more we learn. The more we learn, then we can really go out and lead together. This is why we do this, and this is why we want to bring you really great content. If you can please just give us some feedback through our Facebook site, through the YouTube, because we want to hear from you as far as different things that you feel like, man, I would love to know more about this. I want to hear from this change maker from Love Akron Live. Man, we want to hear from you as an audience. So thank you so much for being with us on today. And we're going to end the show the way we always do. And everybody knows it hasn't changed. It's 2021, but we're always going to say this. If you don't do anything else today, make sure that you love Akron. Everyone take care. Happy New Year. And we're going to see you next Wednesday at this time. Have a great week.
You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation, conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment for Love Akron forever.